Thanks for joining me at Learnwake. My name's Brandon Judd, and we're going to be working on Jules' Scarecrow today. He submitted this video for analysis, and I'm going to be doing a screencast, helping him correct some of the things that are going wrong with this Scarecrow, and hopefully get him landing this thing consistently with ease. So in his submission, he submitted two different videos. One of them says, I need some help on the Scarecrow. I keep falling. I've landed a handful, but probably by luck more than consistency. I consistently seem to be sliding out on the board over your heels. I include two videos that show my last two attempts. Good news is they're pretty on point with one another. Bad news is I keep busting. Thanks, Joel, for this. I appreciate it. And then the other video as well here. We appreciate that. Follow up on the last video, additional attempts from the day before. So, um, going back to your video here, let's watch a little bit of this. I slowed it down a little bit just so we can see because it's all happening pretty fast. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I see. There's something we could fix at the takeoff. And then there's a little bit of an awareness that we could do kind of in the air for the landing, and then a drill I can do on the water. So that's going to be my goal today, is to help explain those three things and show you some examples. So in the meantime, let's just watch a couple of these. You submitted a whole bunch of them, so I appreciate that. Um, but you kind of blast through the wake, and then you land halfway between your normal stance and your switch stance. So that's something that I really wanted to cover is the landing. But before we get there, we have to talk about that takeoff. Uh, it looks to me like it feels to you like your board gets stuck right here. That big blast at the wake looks to me like you get kind of stuck and it doesn't really propel you upward. I also noticed that on almost every attempt, the handle goes up toward your chin and in toward your chest. Um, and that's going to kill your line tension at the end, which is causing you to fall back like that. So I know there's just tons and tons of these, and you've been really working on it. Another thing, just as a little piece of advice, I know this is kind of a side note, but if you find that you're falling consistently the same way over and over and over, I would recommend that you take a break from that trick and work on something else that has a related landing, um, or a related takeoff, or a related rotation. Something similar that you know you can do, but that isn't the goal trick, just to get you away from that. I like to tell people, like, if you were to stand at the free throw line on a basketball court and you were to take 10 free throw shots in a row, and you were, say your shot wasn't really dialed yet, and you were just keep missing, keep missing, keep missing, and you make your 10th. If you were to go back and give you statistics on what your likelihood of percentage was that you would be able to make a free throw, it would be 10%, right? So the more that you do that, you know, like if you know that 9 times out of 10 when you attempt it, you're going to fall just like this, you're actually encouraging bad habits, and it's going to make you fall more frequently and not really help you work out the bugs and work out the kinks of the trick. Whereas instead, if you were to do like a toe side front side 180 where you land with the same landing here, but in the correct way, then that would be something that we could take a look at, and you could land. You could practice that basically and land in a nice upright position, landing switch stance. And that's going to work on one of the pieces of the trick without setting you up for this same fall over and over. So, bit of a side note, but anytime you're working on any trick, if you find that you're getting stuck and it's just repeating itself, it actually makes it harder for you to learn it in the long run than if you were to take a break, try something related, and then come back to it. So something I had to learn the hard way. So here's some of your other attempts. This is the second day, round 2, as you put it. And that takeoff was pretty nice. So I want to work on this one. So this is kind of one of your better ones. There's a whole bunch of other ones. Again, we could just keep watching and watching and watching and have you fall and fall and fall. But they're all pretty much the same. So I want to use kind of that first one here since it's easy to reference. So when you come up, I'm going to slow this down even more. When you come up to the wake, you just hold this position. Like nothing changes. You just edge in and you just kind of keep that same position, same position, same position all the way through the wake until you'll notice your board's kind of flat. And then right now you're just starting to like dive forward. Um, and then you just kind of throw your body forward. The problem with this is it kind of makes your board get stuck and it doesn't give you the right kind of like pole vaulting leverage you need to really trip into this flip to give you good momentum upward and then across. So I want to have you take a look at an example here. So this is a drill that I'd like you to practice to fix the issue that you're experiencing right here. So this drill is called popping reentry ollies. And what's going to happen is you're going to be right on the face of the wake. You're going to be able to push off of the face of the wake and land right back in the same place that you took off, if that makes sense. So this is a good drill to help you with that. I would practice some of those because that's the position you need for the front roll. And I want you to watch what happens here when I come in for mine. I learned it this way, so I just kind of like naturally over exaggerated that. I think I'm a little better now, meaning that I don't exaggerate this quite as much on the front roll. But if I feel like my front rolls ever get out of whack, I always kind of revert to this. And what I mean is, you'll notice I arch my chest backward a little bit, and I sort of sweep my board up in front of me, and it's very obvious, almost obnoxiously so. But you'll see it happen here if I play it through. You'll watch I sweep my board in front of me, and the reason I do that is because if I was like a pole vaulter running this way toward the wake, and my board was the end of my pole vault stick, I would be shoving the board into the wake, and I would use my body as the pole vault stick. So I'd want to get my chest back so that my center mass was a little bit behind the pivot point of my board, so it pitches me up and forward. If I was to stay leaning forward on this, I would never get that upward pitch, and I would just kind of fall forward and then get stuck. Instead of get pushed upward, and then I can kind of launch forward into the flip. So I'm going to back up just a hair, and I'm going to play that through. So watch how my chest goes back and then forward again. And the same thing kind of happens on off-axis spins. So right here, notice where my hips are kind of behind me and my chest is kind of forward. And then as I move closer to the wake, my hips go forward, my chest goes back a bit. And then I hold that position all the way through. You'll notice even in that, if I can pause this and kind of scroll, even like right after I've left the wake, notice how my center mass here is actually behind my board laterally. So the reason I do that is so that I can go up before I go across, and my board doesn't ever feel like it gets stuck. And then I can continue on in that forward flipping trajectory. So I'll have you watch it one more time, just kind of fluid. So I come in, I kind of sweep the board forward, and honestly, it feels like I'm doing a reentry ollie with some lateral travel. Just this motion right there, just pushing. So um, practice these, go through this drill. We go over a few examples of how to practice this and how to build up to it. You may be able to skip through a bunch of it because this isn't really oriented for someone who is already doing front rolls and scarecrows and stuff. So you'd be able to maybe skip some steps, but I'd practice this frontside reentry and then try to mimic that feeling as you come in. And the key is you want to mimic that feeling while loading the line. You'll notice if I go back here how much I actually like really rely on the rope. So I mean, look how far back I'm leaning over my toes on this. And then through the wake, I really load up. Um, my chest is pretty far back. Like you can't see it here, but my front foot is pretty far in front, like closer to the boat than my chest is. And the line's really tight. So I really load the line up through this and then pop straight up so that I can have good momentum for that. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I'd go through this video, popping reentries, and practice some of the drills, and then try to keep the line really tight. But right here, you're like on, if you're comparing it to mine, your hip should be further forward and your chest should be further back. and you should really be using the line tension and leveraging yourself forward. It doesn't have to be a crazy extreme change, because if we look at it, you're already like going up and you're flipping most of the way around back to your feet. I mean, it's not like you're getting stuck and you're going halfway and landing on your face. You're really close here. So it's just a subtle adjustment. I feel like once you feel that connection at the wake when you take off, once you're able to really feel the pop that I was talking about, where you load up the front of your board, or sorry, you load up the board slightly in front of you and keep your hips forward, chest back through the initial takeoff. I feel like as soon as you feel that, you're going to flip almost a 1.5. You're like, wow, it was so much easier to flip. So it just takes a lot of the effort out of it. Another thing is, I don't want you pulling your arms in as you dive forward. Those are going to kill your pop. So if you pull your arms in and dive forward, your pop will go away. If you let your arms out and get your chest back while tripping the board in that loaded way, it'll allow you to come forward better. Right now, this will kill it. So don't feel like you need to pull in and protect the handle. All right, so here's the next part. And again, this you'll see how high you bring the handle. You kind of duck your head. I'd try to keep that rope quiet and a little lower, close to your torso and close to your hips, but not pulling it in. I just want you to keep it a little lower. Um, and that will help you flip around the rope a little better. And then the combination of you bringing the handle up to your face and you kind of diving forward at the takeoff, that's what makes your line tension almost go away at the end, and it feels like you get stuck and can't get stood back upright. Additionally, it makes it really hard to rely on the rope to help turn you that last 90 degrees. So this drill, it's I mean, it's not really a drill, it's an instructional video called Front Roll and Scarecrow Handle Control. There are some drills within it, but what I would recommend is I would recommend watching this and then testing some of the theories inside here. And what this will do is it will teach you how to use the handle to help control the flip. And then you can watch a bunch of good examples of a front roll and a scarecrow. Um, and you'll notice Kyle keeps the handle nice and low on his good ones. So we'll see if we can pause it here at the right point. So when he goes, there we go. So, it's so hard to catch this. Sorry about that. All right, so when he's taking off, you'll see the handle's kind of more belly button. It's a little lower. For you, I feel like it's closer to your chest. Um, and then Kyle's able to flip around it, and it stays a little lower. It comes up a little bit at the end, obviously, because he's showing a bad example here. But once you get more comfortable with that and play around with this video, you'll be able to see the differences, and that should help you a ton. This really should fix most of it. All right, here's the last little bit that I want you to practice, and it's a little weird, but it's going to help you so much with your control of the end of this trick. Some prerequisites here are, like I mentioned before, a toe side, front side 180. You should be able to do that wake to wake and into the flats. You should be able to land two-handed and one-handed. That's really crucial for the Scarecrow. It's going to make your Scarecrow really hard to land if you can't land just a 180 without the flip. So what you can do to practice this is first you can start in the middle of the wakes on your toe side edge, and then you'll do a toe side inside out jump. So you'll go from the middle and you'll kind of ride off this little cliff, off the curb here, if you will, off the edge, and you'll land in the trough. And you're just going to do a straight air just a couple times just to get comfortable. Once you're comfortable with that, then start doing some 180s and land two-handed and then edge away in your switch stance position. Every time you land, you want to kind of edge continually. You don't want to be like leaning hard. You want to land pretty neutral and just kind of edge away. Once that's comfortable, then I want you to land one-handed, and then I want you to carve back into the wake and go up the wake back into the middle of the wakes with only your right hand on the handle, just your front hand, your new front hand. So you're going to go toe side, inside out, 180. You're going to land switch with one hand and land almost immediately carving back into the wake. And it's okay if you go up the wake with a little bit of pop, but just slightly. It's going to feel really uncomfortable because it's your switch toe side. But you need to be able to not be afraid to land with your switch side of your board pointed a little bit more forward. Right now you're stuck between the two inverts, which that front roll and Scarecrow handle control will really help with. But we need to go to the extreme, right? So if you were to, sorry for my analogies, but if you were to stand on like a balance board or like a teeter-totter, right? Um, and you were never to feel the ground on both extremes, right? Like if you were only to have one side of the teeter-totter touch the ground and you were to never get it to tip past the center pivot point and fall all the way to where the other side touches the ground, you would never feel both extremes. You'd just always be like on a balance board when people first start out, like they're really afraid that they're gonna fall off of it, and so they hesitate, and it takes them a while to actually find the balance point. In order to find the middle, you have to go past middle to know what past middle feels like, so you know where to stop. So that long explanation said, to simplify that, you have to go and instead of landing a 180, you need to land like a 190 or an almost 200, right? So you want to land and be carving back into the wake. If you can master that, then you won't be so afraid here and you won't be landing at like 120, 140, 160. You'll actually land a full 180 because you'll know where to stop because you'll know what it feels like to do, a 190, 200, if that makes sense to you. So that will help you with the landing significantly. I've had a lot of students who have this same issue on the landing, and that will solve it. So I know I gave you a whole bunch of homework, but the takeoff will clean that up a bit when you work on that. And then that Scarecrow and front roll handle control will help you set up for the landing. And then that drill where you take off here, land, and carve back will really help you for the landing. You can also do toe side, front side 180s. Just do the full 180. When you land one-handed and carve back just like you did on the inside out ones. I just don't want you to go there yet because it's kind of freaky unless you've done it a few times. That will help you land one-handed if you need, or two-handed and still be able to control this. Because you're still two-handed and a little uncomfortable, your natural comfort level is to stay over your heels, which makes you lose traction, rely on the rope, which there's no line tension, and you're going to fall back over your heels almost every time. I hope that makes sense and it wasn't like drinking out of a fire hose. I know I gave you a bunch of information here, but refer back to the video and you can watch it through a couple times. Maybe just work on one thing at a time, maybe the takeoff for a day, and then work on that landing drill a little bit as well. So have fun with it. Everything else looks good. I think once the takeoff feeling clicks for you a little more and that landing feeling is more ingrained in your muscle memory, I feel like this is going to be super consistent for you. So congrats on getting this far, and we look forward to seeing some of the successful ones. Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.